It's a pretty big deal when you land a five-star player, but it's an even bigger deal when you land one after you lose 7 games, after you bring in a new head coach and people are still iffy and trying to see if he's going to be the right fit at a school. It's a big deal when he's a legacy and when honestly you can't afford to lose him, because if you can't get him, how are you ever going to get another one? It's a big deal that Matt Rule was able to come in and he was able to, at the last moment, take over and find a way to seal the deal on a guy who was committed to one of the top programs in the entire country, Georgia, who has built back and been one of the most dominant teams in college football these past few years. It's a big deal, and it's much appreciated by Nebraska fans, I can tell you that. But from Georgia fans, I've seen a little bit of hate. I've seen a little bit of negativity, and I was surprised to see that. You know, if I'm a Georgia fan and I'm dominating every year and a kid decides not to come, I'm going to realize, wait, next year we're going to get another 5-star and everything's going to be just fine. And this is good for college football as a whole. But for some reason, some people just can't handle it. Some people I don't think like or can accept rejection, which was surprising to me because, you know, let's spread it out. Let's make college football fun, right? With Dylan Raiola coming to Nebraska, I got a lot of texts from friends, Wisconsin fans, USC, Ohio State, and they were all so happy to see Raiola came to Nebraska because they said, finally, there's going to be some balance. We're going to get back to a point where college football is watchable and where there aren't constant blowouts and where you can actually see some of the top competition at other schools, and teams who have struggled in the past, like Nebraska, and haven't had much offense, can finally have hope and have a reason to believe that, you know, there will be greener grass on the other side, and we aren't going to be stuck in this situation that we've now recently found ourselves in with a quarterback room who just wasn't it, unfortunately. You know, the interesting thing about the quarterback room is now you've got Shubba Purdy, who is still there. You've got Danny Kaelin, who 100% is coming. You've got Dylan Raiola, who I would have to assume is going to get a look to be the starter, right? And you've got Heinrich Harburg, who has already played quite a bit. Are we now talking about a quarterback competition come what? April? No, not even April. Come March. Chubba Purdy versus Dylan Raiola. And is Chubba Purdy going to be inclined to stay no matter what? The conversation gets really interesting because in my last live stream, I talked about the importance of needing a quarterback room. And now you've got one, but how long can you keep it? There was a time back in 2018 when Scott Frost decided to let the quarterback battle go all the way up until game 1. It was against Colorado. Adrian Martinez was named the starter, and a week before when he was named that starter, Tristan Gebbia opted to hit the portal, and it hurt Nebraska's depth, obviously, and it cost them because I think right after that, Adrian did end up getting hurt, and Nebraska lost a game to Troy or someone like that. My point here is it's going to be interesting to see what happens in that QB room over the next few months. And if Rule does decide to say we don't need to take a transfer portal QB, and that's where I think this is going, you're now going to be left with a competition. And depending on how it plays out and how soon we find out, you could end up with a pretty thin quarterback room. I don't know what's going to happen. I'm just throwing some ideas out there. These are things that I've been thinking about all week because as you get more information and as you realize, you know, the pending situation may turn out in your favor, you've got to think about all of the ways that it's going to affect the program, all of the ways that it's going to affect you as a fan. And I've been through some rocky times as a Nebraska fan, so I'm not new to this type of territory. But regardless, this is the bottom line. It's massive for Nebraska. It's massive that Dylan Raiola is coming, and he's going to be a quarterback who, like I said in my video, if you haven't watched my video yet, I made a 10-minute video where I talked about a bunch of stuff in it. I talked about this kind of the story and what I could tell you about this past week leading up to him committing. I talked about his NIL deal and the value of him versus what they paid for him essentially in terms of the cost of losing Kyle McCord and other transfer quarterback options. And I talked about what kind of the outlook is for him as a player. You know, he's a certain type of player. He's something that's different and that's new. Nebraska hasn't had a quarterback like him in a long time. I mean, they haven't had a quarterback like him ever, right? But they haven't had a quarterback who plays with his style. And you've got a guy who prefers to pass. He's a pocket passer. He's not someone who wants to run. And that's different from what we've seen at Nebraska for the last 7 seasons or whatever it's been. It's very different from what we saw last year. I don't want to say oddly enough, but I guess you can say conveniently enough, he's the type of quarterback who I think Matt Rule would want. He wants a guy who can throw the ball and who can distribute. That's the key word and the word I'll use all the time with him. He's a elite distributor. And they're not going to try to force anything with his legs. They're not going to be in a position where they have to worry about him getting injured. And I think it's just a really exciting time that Matt Rule's now going to be able to run an offense that he really wants to. The question is, what about the receivers? So there are a lot of questions going forward, and it'll be fun this offseason to kind of dive into what's happening, because you don't know who that starting quarterback's going to be, but you have to assume when we're talking about a talent like Dylan, he's going to be in the conversation. And what's up with Chubba Purdy? He's going to be healed off of injury. He's got some experience, but he's going to go to battle with a true freshman. How does he feel about that? All of those things are questions you have to ask. They all matter. So just keep them in mind. Offseason's going to be full of drama. Smoking Cactus, thank you for the $2 super chat. He says, F them Georgia fans. They're mad jealous. GB. FR. Yeah, I agree with you. I think a lot of fans who comment on recruits' pages, who can go to a 17-year-old's page and be hateful? Like, that's crazy to me. Maybe if you're another 17-year-old kid and you're just a bum and you're at home playing Xbox, and then this other kid's getting paid hella money to go and play elite college football and you're at home playing with him on the video game, I get why you'd be a hater in that sense. But if you're an adult man and you're hating on a 17-year-old kid, oh my God, how down bad you must be. And I've seen the comments. Some of these are adult men who hate. It's beyond me. Sam, thank you. Thank you for the congrats on the 20K subscribers. That was all you guys. I have not gotten the 20,000 subscribers. All I've done is post videos up. You guys have gotten me to 20,000 subscribers because you hit the like button, you hit the subscribe button, you told people about the channel, you watched the video to the end. That's all on you, not on me. All I could do was my part, which was make the video. So thank you, Sam, and thank you everybody else who helped us get here, because this was a big deal. Hitting 20,000 subscribers, you know, it makes me look a little bit more established. It makes me look like I'm official or something. Like I'm not just making videos in my bedroom. You know what I'm saying? Jordan, he says, any transfers we should keep an eye on to follow Dylan. Loving the content, GBR. So my thought here, I don't know that there are any transfers right now who are extremely interested in Nebraska, outside of maybe a Julian Fleming, who it sounds like he's still in the mix. I'm going to put my prediction in as Penn State. That's where he's from. He's from Pennsylvania. So I would guess he goes back to there, and their offense is already kind of efficient. I mean, it's not great, but it's efficient enough. And they have a new OC coming in from Kansas. Kansas really did well last year and the year before with their OC. So I'd guess he goes somewhere like that. That's, proven. Nebraska, still a work in progress. Move on to the next one. There's a running back named, now I'm blanking on his name, something about others. Doesn't matter. There's a running back from Oregon, and it sounds like Nebraska's going after him. Sean Callahan reported on that, I think, today. Dante Dowdle, I think is his name. Anyway, he was a 4-star coming out of high school. I think he's a true freshman this year, and he's like huge. He's like 6'2", 220. He's big back. So they're talking about Nebraska pursuing him. But outside of that, I think kind of the future plan is, let's see what happens after these bowl games. There are going to be a ton of guys who enter the portal, and after a bunch of new names hit, then we can evaluate and see what Nebraska's needs still are and see how many guys are going to go after. I cannot emphasize enough how important I think it is for them to get one running back and one receiver. The running back room is good, but the running back room has been injured. And because it's been so beaten down, how can you trust it, right? Gabe Ervin, one more thing goes wrong and you're now down your power back, your number one guy. Gabe was the one this year. And as soon as he went down, you were left with Emmett Johnson, who doesn't have that size. Good running back, great performances down the stretch, almost had some 100-yard games. But can you rely on that throughout the entire season? I don't know. Got to get a running back. Receiver, it's no question. I mean, I don't think Marcus Washington's going to get a waiver. You've got IGC. I don't know. Sounds like he's coming back. So you got IGC. You got Alex Bullock, Malachi Coleman, Jalen Lloyd. Tight ends you're comfortable with Fedoni and Carter Nelson. But who's the experienced weapon? Because none of those guys played that much. Bullock was essentially a starter, but how many catches, how many targets did he have? I just think you need a guy who's going to be used to catching balls from guys like Raiola, a guy who's played with a pocket passer. And if Nebraska can get one of those, it's going to be a game-changing situation for their offense this year. Remember, their offense was so bad that even a little bit of progress would make night and day difference. We'd be watching as fans like, holy shit, this team scores 24 points a game. That'd be a massive deal. That'd be a 6-point increase from what they did this year. That'd essentially be another touchdown. So if this team can score one more touchdown a game, what does that mean? Well, they would have won 5 games this year. There were 5 games they lost by I think, no, 4 they lost by 3. Now I'm blanking. 3 by 3, 2 by, it doesn't matter. It was all by 1 score or less. If Nebraska would have scored a touchdown in all those games, the games would have been freaking tight. So look, get a receiver in here, and this will be a very interesting conversation, and it'll be a very exciting time to be rooting. I'm hesitant to say I'm all in on Dylan. I'm telling you, it's going to be a big deal if Dylan wins the starting job early. And if I'm cheering hard for Dylan, just like Kyle McCord and his dad didn't want to happen, I'm assuming Chubba Purdy and his dad are feeling kind of the same way. It's one thing when an outsider comes in and says, nope, I'm not interested in participating in this. I already know the fans are going to be all over Dylan Raiola. But it's another thing when you got Chubba Purdy who feels like, well, I've already been in the program for 2 years. I showed what I could do last season. I'm coming back off injury. I'm ready to go. He's going to get the nod, right? But then if Dylan gets a little bit of favoritism and the fans are, riding him, I think Chubba's going to feel some type of way, and that could really shake up the quarterback room. And then it's like, wow, Nebraska is really down to Heinrich, Harburg, Danny Kaelin, and Dylan Raiola only. It's just stressful. But this is the new college football, so no matter what happens, this is kind of the way it goes. I'm going back to Super Chat. I know. I see messages. I know I'm going on rants, tangents, is what it is. Also, this Casey Thompson deal, I said it in my last stream, I think. Casey Thompson is not coming to play quarterback at Nebraska. At best, if Casey was to come back to Nebraska, he would be like a GA, and he would try to work towards becoming a coach in the future. But Casey Thompson, it would be the most bizarre scenario of all time. I guess there's a world where it's semi-possible. Maybe. I'm not even sure that it's possible. I think he's still trying to get a waiver. I don't know. But Casey Thompson's not coming back to play quarterback in Nebraska. So that question that I get all the time is so bizarre to me. I'm surprised people ask it. Hucking Fuskers, thank you for the $2 super chat. Let's go GBR. This will be the longest offseason. I actually would argue this one's going to be one of the faster off seasons. Last year felt pretty quick because there was a lot to talk about, a lot of newness. The year before felt longer to me because it felt like, I don't know, I guess it felt like we were going to get a really good product. So because we were so excited and anticipating it so much, it just felt like it was taking forever to get there. This offseason, I feel like we kind of know who Nebraska is, what they are. And although I am anticipating the season, I'm not as optimistic or excited as I was going into 2021, where I thought there was a potential 10-win team. I think right now I'm looking at Nebraska and I'm like, okay, is this a team who can get to 7, maybe 8, miracle 9? I mean, miracle. The offense would really need to take a step forward to get to that point. So I think this offseason is just going to go a little bit more quickly than some of the others because of that. So I don't know. Just some thoughts. Michelle, thank you. Thank you for being one of my early subscribers and for supporting the channel for so long. It's been a long journey to 20,000. Let me tell you that. I'll tell you a little quick story. Some of you have heard this before. Some of you haven't because some people are new. When I first started the channel, one of my gimmicks to get people to subscribe was I went on my Instagram page, and I had Corn Craze, the Instagram page. It had 1,000 followers on it. And I was just posting up graphics. It was like game posters. So I'd post up a poster graphic and it would have like some Minnesota players, some Nebraska players, and they'd have like some caption for it was like a movie poster, whatever. It was cool. It worked to get me 1,000 followers on Instagram. Okay. So what I did was I said, hey, everybody on Instagram, if you go and watch my video and subscribe to my channel, I'm going to send you a Corn Craze sticker in the mail. It's like, a little round sticker. I sell them on my website for freaking $5. Okay. So I said, everybody who subscribes is going to get one of those stickers. So to get my first 1,000 subscribers, I sent out over 500 stickers. I mean, I was firing stickers like you wouldn't believe. I was writing so much, I had to go and get one of those stamps on Amazon to stamp my address on the letter like I'm a guy who works in an office or something. I mean, I had never done that before. So that was my first time mailing that many letters. If you were one of those first 500 subscribers who got one of those stickers and you need an updated sticker and my address or your address is already in my DMs, just follow up on the DM on Instagram and I'll fire you a new sticker because I know they wear out and I've got some for you. But yeah, that's how I got some of my first subscribers when I really wanted to get this channel going. So Michelle, I know you've been here for a long time. That's why I told you that story. But yeah, it's been a long journey to get here. Huskers for life. Thank you for being a member for 13 months, making the trip to Lincoln for the Rutgers game. I mean, it's hard not to pick a game that Nebraska can win. I've been to so many Nebraska games of late, and They just haven't. I went to Colorado this year. I went to Michigan this year. It's fun. Okay. The pregame festivities are fun. The excitement and the buildup is fun. There's fun in hope, right? And there's fun in speculation that maybe something different will happen this time around. Maybe this is the season when they finally blow the doors off and they finally get their top 25 win. But what probably would have been more fun for me is if I would have gone to a game that was more reasonable, a game that was going to be more competitive, and a game that was going to be something I could sit through until the very end. So great game to pick. I think that will be a battle for sure. Rutgers has had a traditionally good defense these last few years. Greg Schiano's a great defensive guy. And their offense actually stepped up this season. So I think that'll be a good game. I think Nebraska has a great chance to win it. So good pick. I don't know what I'm going to do next year. I might go to the Colorado game because, there's just something about needing to see Colorado lose in person. And I might just have to take 5,000 shots until I get it, Eventually I'm going to do it. Ryan says, how much money did Dylan make in the NIL deal? So I made a video and I talked about a lot in there. One of the things I talked about was what I heard the NIL deal was worth. What I was told, and there were some things I was told, I can't give up my sources, obviously, but there were some things I was told along this process that I think a lot of people who work at Nebraska were surprised. I got DMs from people and they were like, wow, how'd you know that? So I heard $2.5 million over the course of 4 years, which breaks down to $625,000 a year. I heard that from two different people, actually. That's why I can share it, because it's not like one person has the info. There are a few people with that info out there, right? It's a really reasonable number. It's actually lower than I would expect if he was a back end starter, right? Say you get Dylan to his third or fourth season. He's a Heisman contender. He's a stud. Do they renegotiate that deal? I'm not really sure how it works. It makes sense as an entry level deal. I think it's fantastic. Rule doesn't like to reward players too early. He'd rather reward a player on the back end after they've actually stayed. They've gone through the system and he knows they're not going to leave in the portal. He's not going to be a guy like Quinn Ewers who jumped over to Ohio State real quick and then bam, 1 year after he made $1 million, he was gone, never to be heard from again, going off and playing for national championships at the University of Texas. So I don't think that's Rule's ideal situation, but I think when you're talking about landing a top quarterback who is obviously going to get the same type of offers, I don't think Georgia offered him that much money, by the way, but similar offers in that range. I think you have to step up and make the necessary change, or not change, but amend what your rule is. And if your rule is I don't want to reward young players, well, maybe this guy has already done enough to prove to me that he deserves some sort of compensation. So that's my take on the NIL. I think it's great. I think college football players deserve to be paid. I was actually watching Josh Pate and he was giving his take on what's his name? Chip Kelly had to say after his UCLA bowl game the other night. And Chip Kelly made an argument that he thinks all players should be paid a percentage of the TV revenue. If every player on the roster gets $50,000 base, something like that. Anyway, I'm a big advocate for that. I think college sports have turned into professional sports. I think the demands are extremely high on players, and it's hard to argue that college football players shouldn't be paid. So that's my quick take on that. Let's see here. Husker Nation, James, thank you for gifting 10 memberships. I appreciate you. Nick, he says, Brandon Baker flipped from Texas. Okay, so here's another thing I can say. I see so many comments about Nate Frazier and Brandon Baker and a bunch of other random recruits. There's no indication that any of those guys are going to come to Nebraska. And I've got no reason to believe that any of these flips from Dylan's past who were on visits would even consider coming. You have to realize, just like all of you have made comments, and I'm not targeting you when I say that, just like a lot of people in the chat and in the comment section have said things about, well, he's already transferred to 4 schools and he's committed to 3 and I can't trust him, he'll leave, Look, I don't agree with all that. Whatever, to each his own. But I think maybe there are some players who might feel the same way. And it's like, well, if I'm going to follow this guy, am I just going to follow him around to all these different schools? I'm not saying that's how they feel. I'm just saying maybe that's how they feel. So I don't think Brandon Baker or Nate Frazier or any of those guys are on the table. I think now you go after some new names. Now you go after who's left over, who are some guys who might not be fully content with their decision, and maybe they're open to some persuasion from Matt Rule. They're open now because there's a quarterback in place who could potentially get them the ball. That's a start. Or you say, no, we're going to go and we're going to Band-Aid up this year. We're going to hit the portal. We're going to try and get another Billy Kemp or someone who's experienced like that, and we're going to make it work. And then in the future, we'll continue to develop our guys and we'll continue to recruit incoming freshmen and go that route. But there'll be more guys coming in. I just don't know if they'll be transfer portal guys or true freshman. I think that's the right way to say it. Huskers for life. Thank you for the $20 super chat. If you fire another comment, I'll respond to it. Let's see here. My chat rendered to the bottom, guys. It's sometimes it's so difficult to manage the chat. This thing just has a mind of its own. Okay, so I got Huskers. Perfect. I'm back in the right spot. Serial. Super pumped we landed Raiola, but still nervous we didn't land a veteran QB to compete with him. Starting a true freshman at QB makes me nervous, but then again, we've never landed the number one QB before. You know, it's uncharted territory for a Nebraska fan. We have landed top tier quarterbacks. Adrian Martinez was one of the better quarterbacks in his class. I don't know if he was a top 7 quarterback. He was up there. He was a 4-star, highly rated guy. I think borderline top 100 player in the country, maybe like in the 150 range. He started right away. And what happened? He saw immediate success. Now, the Adrian Martinez situation was so much different. He was playing in a prolific offense, coming with a staff who totally emphasized that role for him. And they made sure that the quarterback was going to be the guy who did it all and was the ultimate playmaker on that team. This offense, entirely different. You know, he had J.D. Spielman. He had a couple transfer receivers, Jerron Woodyard. He had Mike Williams, who's now on Nebraska's staff. Who else did he have? He had Greg Bell at running back. Anyway, my point is this. He had a lot of weapons, a lot of really good weapons. Divino Zigbo was on that team. I think Maurice Washington, or maybe that was 2019. It doesn't matter. This is the point. We've seen a true freshman come in and play quarterback in Nebraska and succeed. So to say Dylan Raiola can't do it it's absurd. Dylan's ready to go. He's ready made. He's a quarterback of the future, and he's a guy who's ready to play right now. I think his dad really wants him to play early. I think his dad expects him to play early. I think that's a conversation that they might have had with Matt Rule. I think there's going to be a quarterback competition regardless. I think even though his dad wants him to be QB1 right now, I think Chubba Purdy is going to have something to say about that. And I think Matt Rule knows and understands you can't just let a guy have the job. You've got to make sure that there's fair and healthy competition. Competition drives growth. Competition makes you want more. It makes you wake up and realize, I can't just get up and do the same thing I did yesterday. I need to push a little bit harder. I need to bench a little bit more. I need to make sure I squat more. I need to run faster. I need to make sure my body's healing because there's someone else breathing down my neck who wants that job just as bad as I do. Chubba is that man. Heinrich Haarberg could be that man. We haven't seen the last of Heinrich Haarberg. Let me tell you that right now. That dude showed up out of nowhere, had a great performance given the circumstances he was put in. And now he's going to look at that and say, okay, I had XYZ go wrong last year, but I didn't have any training for XYZ. Now, if I have an entire offseason to work through XYZ, imagine how good I can be. There are 3 quarterbacks, Daniel Kalen, 4. There are 4 quarterbacks who believe they can play elite college football right now, who they think they can play in the Big Ten, start and win games. Chubba Purdy and Heinrich Haarberg are not going to go down without a fight. So it's going to be interesting to see, does the true freshman earn the nod early? Does it take all the way until the first game? Does Chubba potentially start the first few? These are all things I don't know, but it's exciting. It's fun to talk about. It's fun to predict. I'm excited for it. Steven says, do you think we as a fan base are creating a dangerously too high expectation for this team? Okay, there's a difference. For this team, as in the 2024 team, or for this program, as in Nebraska football under Matt Rule. Those are 2 very different things. I'm going to answer team because you asked team. You know, I said in my video, if you haven't had a chance to watch my video, you can go to my YouTube channel. Click the little thing in the corner and the video's right there. It's got Dylan's, I did a whole jersey swap with Dylan on it. It's got, you know, it's a good thumbnail. You'll see it right away. I talk about it a lot in that video. And one thing I talked about at the very end, I don't want to call it a warning to Nebraska fans, but I encouraged patience and I encouraged them to understand and to try to understand that you're not dealing with a guy who is coming into a perfect situation. If Dylan was the quarterback at Georgia this year, 2024, or the quarterback at Ohio State going into 2024, and he had the plethora of weapons that those schools have, and he had the offense that's already been built into the machine it is today, what type of expectations would you have if he was the starter? Well, I can promise you would think he needs to perform at an all-conference level because he's playing at a school that produces all-conference performers, and if you are a good quarterback, then you're going to fit into that narrative. At Nebraska, it's very different. The team needs to build around him. The team needs to advance to his level. How many 5-star receivers are on Nebraska's team right now? How many 5-star running backs are on Nebraska's team right now? How many 5-star anything? There isn't anyone who has the talent that he has out there next to him. Some of those guys are extremely talented. I think Jalen Lloyd is a guy who could play in the NFL. He looks the part, okay? Don't know how it's going to shake out, not making any predictions, but is he that right now today? No, he was raw as a true freshman. Can he catch up? And can he play at the same level as Dylan? Of course he can. And it's not just him. It's plenty of other guys on the team. You got to have patience, and you've got to understand that this team is going to have to meld or mesh together and try to find a way to kind of weld together. And I don't know what the right word is. I guess compete on the same level, be able to look like they all belong on the same field. The worst thing that I've seen is when you have a quarterback who's a superstar and he plays on the team who he should not be playing on. It's like if you watch an eighth grade high school or an eighth grade team play with a high school quarterback, and it's like, oh, well, the high school quarterback's bigger than everybody. He's stronger than everybody. He looks way better. And then eventually he just gets so frustrated he has to leave and go play with someone else. You would never want that for Nebraska. But the good news is I don't think Nebraska's that down bad. Nebraska has plenty of talent around him. It's just they're going to have to develop their skills and continue to add pieces in who will work. So I hope that answers the question. I don't want to say they're dangerously high expectations, but I do think Nebraska fans expect quick success. And I think when you have a quarterback with these accolades, you're going to expect him to come in and right away be a program changer. He very well could be, but let's give it time. Let's make sure everything works itself out. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. We don't even know if he's the starter yet. Jacob, thank you for the $5 super chat. What are the chances of Chuba starting week 1? He showed some promise those last 2 games and has more experience. Maybe Dylan plays later. I personally, it's so freaking early, right? If you ask me today, right now, what my guess was, I would say Chuba probably takes the first snap of the season. If you ask me today what my guess is for who takes the last snap of the season, I'm going to say Dylan Raiola. I'm going to leave it at that. I can't go too deep into it because I don't know. It's so early. The dude just right now announced. I mean, we've known for a week, but it's still early. I want to take a second to pause, and I want to shout out a sponsor on our channel, characterchronicles.com and the Character Chronicles YouTube page. Adam this week has been on fire. So he did a gut reaction to the volleyball game the other day. Then he followed it up today with a Trev Alberts interview. He followed that up with a gut reaction to Dylan Raiola committing to Nebraska. So this guy has been on a tear. He's making a ton of content. He's done more content this offseason than I have. He's got 100 videos on his channel now, and he started it back in August. So if you haven't subscribed to him yet, he's got 12.7K subs. Make sure you go subscribe to his channel. Just search Character Chronicles on YouTube or go to characterchronicles.com. He's been an awesome partner for me. He's helped me make a ton of content, and I really like watching his content because Adam has some insights that other people don't since he's a former player. And, he's got some connections that none of us do. And that's why he gets some of these great interviews. So again, make sure you hit subscribe on his channel because he's been a great supporter of our show and helps me. What do they say? Keep the lights on. Let's get back to chat. Okay. We went to Jacob's comment. Wyatt, thank you for the $5 super chat. Finally decided after 3 years living here, it's time to sign up for the heartbreak. Love the vids and GBR. Well, thank you for being here. Thank you for supporting the channel. And I'm really glad to have you back a part of, or I guess not back a part, but now that you're going to sign up for it, I'm glad to have you as part of the Husker fan base. I think, right now is a really good time to subscribe to Nebraska football, not to me. I mean, it's always a good time to subscribe to me, but it's a good time to subscribe to Nebraska football because you have some coaches who are extremely passionate about getting this place back to where it needs to be. You have some players who are coming in and they want to make sure that they're doing their best and that they're playing at the highest level, and couple that with a program led by a coach who wants to get those guys to the pros. And we're likely going to see some wins pretty soon here. I felt really encouraged by the way the defense played last year. I felt really encouraged by the culture that was built. And I think next year we're going to see a lot more positivity. So, good things will continue to compound on top of each other. And one good thing leads to the next, the snowball effect. So if you liked what you saw this year, then you're going to like what you see next year even more. I'm confident in saying that. And I'm a big believer in Matt Rule and what they've got going on. So Wyatt, welcome to the party. I'm glad that you jumped in because this is the right time. Cole says, we've got 2 Elite 11 QBs coming in. Future is bright. You know, you've got 2 Elite 11 QBs coming in the same class. And I don't know how many schools can say they've done that. I don't know how many schools do that regularly. And I don't know if it's a common theme in the NIL or in the portal era. Quarterbacks want to play. Quarterbacks look at other schools and they're like, that guy sucks. I could have that job. Why am I sitting here riding the bench? It's interesting. Do you see both of these quarterbacks staying for the entire 4 years? Does one graduate before and then give the latter a chance to start as a senior? I don't know about that. You know, go back to the olden days of college football. I don't know what year it was. Let's say 2003. You had a guy named Matt Castle over there at USC. Matt Castle, stud quarterback, ended up playing the NFL for multiple years. I think he played on the Patriots. Doesn't matter. Matt Castle backed up, was it Matt Leinart or Carson Palmer? He backed up maybe Matt Leinart. Never played at USC, threw very few passes. I mean, he was not the guy. He was the backup guy. And he didn't have an opportunity. I guess he did have an opportunity to transfer his last year as a graduate, but that wasn't the deal back then. Back then, you kind of stayed through and played through. He ended up going to the NFL, and they had this superstar quarterback on their bench this entire time. Nebraska could develop that. They could have 2 guys in the same exact class, and one rides the bench the entire time. That's what happens when you're a quarterback. At receiver, it's so much different. At receiver, everyone has a chance to shine. You can play 5 to 6 guys on a single day. You can play 10 to 12 throughout the year, right? So it is interesting to think that Daniel Kaelin's going to stay in this class. I understand. I know why he wants to. I think it's great that he has so many guys he's connected to and has these relationships pre-built in with this team. I am a little bit surprised he is going to stay, though, because of what we had just talked about in the NIL and the portal era. Guys like to go to different schools. Regardless, awesome that they've got both. It breeds excellence when you get really good competition in there. So fantastic. Ryan says, I wonder how much NIL Raiola got. I already talked about this in this video. I also talked about it in my other video. So if you want to go and see how much he got, go watch that other video. It's on my page. I posted up about an hour ago. Peter, thank you for the $10 super chat. The cope that Georgia fan base is having is crazy, GBR. Yeah, I was surprised by this. Thanks for the 10, by the way, Peter. I'm going to clear this so I can respond to this. So some of these comments were kind of negative. Some were positive, right? That bag's got to be insane. What else? Have fun watching the dogs hold up the natty while you play in the Cheez-It Bowl. Someone else said something about like you go from Georgia playing in national championships to Nebraska where you'll play for the Bahamas Bowl. This one's funny. Now watch how far they drop him from the rankings. There's a stigma by Nebraska fans that they think every time a good player comes to Nebraska that the recruiting sites drop them and downgrade their ranking. Here we go. Dude went to 4 different high schools and committed to 3 different colleges. Dude is so not reliable. What are we talking about? I already gave my take on this in the last live stream. I was very passionate, very wound up, very energetic in that last one. People told me that they thought I was on cocaine that last video. I was surprised by that. Look, I know I'm lit and I know I get really excited. I have a lot of passion and a lot of energy. But coke? I never done coke in my whole life. Great, my friends have. But I sit on the sidelines, okay? I don't do that stuff. I just have natural energy, okay? I'm just excited and I'm passionate. It's okay to be passionate. It's okay to love Nebraska football, guys. I know. I'm a grown man who talks about 17 to 25-year-old guys for a living. And it's funny. I get it. But I'm passionate about this sport. I love it so much. Anyway, Peter. Yeah, I agree with you. Georgia fan base is down bad. Boyd, thank you for being a member for 15 months. The future is very bright, GBR. Man, this is the right time. Everything just lined up perfectly. I'm glad Dylan wasn't in a class where he could have came under frost and then have that turnover come where you had to break in a new coach and do all that. This was just so freaking awesome that it worked out, that Matt Rule had 1 year under his belt and we could see that there was a reason Dylan should be at this school. Michelle says, big question, who's going to be our QB coach? Well, Michelle, that's a great question. I've seen multiple people talk about this now, so I feel comfortable saying it. Jeff Christensen has been talking to Matt Rule about potentially coaching the entire quarterback room. He coaches quarterbacks at TCU. He coaches quarterbacks in the NFL. He coached on that show. What was it? Quarterback on Netflix. You saw him on there working with Patrick Mahomes. And he has relationships with everyone. Lincoln Riley. I mean, everyone. This is one of the most decorated quarterback coaches in football. Matt Rule wants him to coach the entire room. Now, he's not going to be Nebraska's quarterback coach. No, that's not how this is going to work. They're going to get a dedicated guy. But if Nebraska had him working with their entire group, could you imagine the strides they would take in the offseason? That's what the USC quarterbacks are doing. That's what the Georgia quarterbacks are doing, the Ohio State quarterbacks. The elite guys are working on the side. They're not college kids. These are pro athletes. Do not forget it. If you want to be a pro athlete, you got to work like a pro athlete. So Matt Rule's saying, hey, let's get a professional trainer in here and let's get him working with our team. So Christensen might be a guy who goes and works with the entire room. Quarterback coach specific, I don't know. We'll have to see. They're going to get one, though. I'm very confident in that. Christian, thank you for the $2 super chat. This is a program changer GBR. Here's another point I made in my video I made tonight. I talked about how you would run the risk of losing if you were to flirt with the idea of Dylan Raiola. You run the risk of losing Kalen, and you potentially run the risk of losing McCord. They obviously lost one of those too. But was it worth it? Program changing is such a perfect word. Dylan Raiola is a face. Dylan Raiola is a guy who can go out there. He can do the interviews. He looks the part. He can do the photo shoots. He looks like the face of a franchise, like an NFL franchise. He's not some gawky college kid. He's not goofy or dorky. He looks the part. He looks like he can lead the team. And that means a lot. I think it means a lot because it's national perception. I think it's the way that other people treat you. Nebraska fans are going to love you either way. But when other people look inside, they're like, damn, that program's cool. If Joe Burrow was when Joe Burrow was at LSU, people looked at that program and said, damn, I want to be like him. I like that guy. He's my favorite quarterback. I'm not an LSU fan, but I just like what he's got going on. The same thing can happen for Nebraska. Dylan Raiola, if he explodes onto the scene and he looks the part, has the attitude, comes out there and wins, there are going to be a lot of people from the outside looking in, wanting to be a part of it. There are going to be a lot of people who are saying, I like that guy, and I'm a Nebraska fan now because of him. That is program changing. That gets into the head of the 13, the 12-year-old quarterbacks who are watching on TV now and who say, Nebraska is a place I could go to be like that guy. LSU became it. LSU had Joe Burrow in 2019. In 2023, they had Jaden Daniels. Jaden Daniels didn't commit to LSU until after Joe Burrow had played there. I'm not saying he went there because of Joe Burrow, but what I am saying is it changed the perception of that program. You bring in one guy who can get it done, and the next guy who has potential to get it done says, if that guy can do it there, so can I. I'm in. What if that happened in Nebraska next? I didn't even mention this. I haven't even talked about it. But the best part about today? Nebraska didn't sign one Raiola. They got two. They got Dylan, but they're getting Dayton. Dayton's the younger brother. I think he's a freshman or a sophomore in high school. He's like my height right now. We're eye level. The first time I met him, that kid was like at my chest. He was a little kid. Now he's like my height. I think he's going to be like 6'2", just like Dylan is. He's going to be a 4 or 5 star quarterback. He's going to have the arm strength. He's going to be elite. He's been training with Jeff Christensen too. He's going to be a high school quarterback next year starting. I think this will be his first year starting as a high school quarterback on varsity. He was on like JV this year or whatever. But the point is, they got a 2-for-1. Nebraska fans aren't even talking about it. They aren't even thinking about it because it's so far ahead in the future. He's a 2026 or 2027 recruit. So people aren't even considering the option or the fact. But that dude wears Nebraska stuff all the time. That guy is attached to this family just like Dylan is. And he loves wearing red. He loves Nebraska football because he's grown up around it and he's grown up in it. So 2-for-1. Think about that, man. This is going to pay dividends in the future. Chance, thank you for the $5 super chat. Any thoughts on who may be interested in playing alongside Dylan in terms of offensive line, wide receiver, and running back? Yeah, it's such a weird thing now because we're at the final hour. The clock's ticking down. You got, 2 days from National Signing Day, the early one. You're not going to go back to guys who Dylan knew and say, hey, I know it's last minute, but leave Georgia, leave USC, leave Texas, leave Oregon, come play with Dylan here. Bad timing. Unfortunately, it didn't work out with this class. You would hope that there are some transfer guys who might come in and say, hey, we're going to flirt with the idea of Nebraska. But who knows? I think that there are going to be more transfer guys available after the bowl games, and that'll give us more of an indication as who's on the table. For right now, I don't think there are going to be many who are going to come back into play that Dylan was talking to before just because it's so last minute. So that ship in my head's kind of sailed. And this is kind of a long-term outlook. Look into the future, kind of January, February, maybe some, I don't know. It's mostly portal guys, maybe some random guy who hasn't made up his decision on Texas or Georgia or whatever, and you can come in and swoop him. But my thought is the next class going forward is going to have more guys who want to come and play for Nebraska. Either way, it's a positive. It's a big deal. So don't think that just because they weren't able to get any other receivers or running backs that it wasn't a positive, you know? Husker fan says, Connor, I have a question. How did Minnesota make a bowl game at 5-7 and Nebraska didn't? There's this academic something. I don't remember what it all is. I don't care about it. I don't look too much into it. That's why I'm not going to be great at explaining it, but I'll give you the rough breakdown. There's an academic qualification thing. There's like a ranking, and Nebraska ranks pretty low on that list. Minnesota ranks at the top of that list. So every single 5-7 team who was on that list that qualified in that academic whatever, they're ranked 1 to 100 or whatever it is, and Nebraska was somewhere lower and Minnesota was higher, so Minnesota got the bid. That's all that happened. It was very simple. Is what it is, you know? Nebraska in the past, I think, had a higher academic rate. What was it? Someone talked about it. Maybe it was Sean Callahan talked about it on the Husker Online podcast. I'm not sure who it was. Don't quote me. But someone said that back when Nebraska played UCLA in 2015, what was that? Like the Golden Gate Bridge Bowl? I don't know what bowl it was, but it was in San Francisco. They qualified because they didn't have the transfer exodus. I think now because the transfers all left in that Scott Frost era, it really messed. Oh, it's the academic progress rate. That's what it is. Okay, so their academic progress rate fell off because all those guys transferred out, technically never graduated from Nebraska, so they fell way down the list. So it's actually a little bit of a skewed number that Scott Frost kind of screwed up in the way he recruited because all these guys came in and left too early, and now the progress rate is, you know, in the toilet. Minnesota doesn't have that issue because they don't lose all their guys to transfer. So yeah. I'm reading chat, by the way, guys. Jose, here's a hack. Do it quick. If you go on and get one of those custom jerseys on Fanatics or whatever, since he's not enrolled yet, they'll let you put his name on a jersey and whatever number you want. But if you wait until he's enrolled, they're going to block it and you won't be able to get a Raiola jersey. So I remember before the season, someone said, hey, look at this, Connor. I got a Sims jersey number 7 customized. But a week later, they blocked it. So right now, if you want that, get it done before his name's in the system. Otherwise, you won't be able to get a custom Raiola jersey. Just a hint, just trying to help you guys out. James, thank you for the 15 months of membership. You've been a big supporter for such a long time, dude. I appreciate you. He says, I haven't felt this kind of energy since the 90s. Man, I felt some good energy during the Frost era. Early on, we were talking about an Adrian Martinez Heisman run potentially in 2019. The reason Corn Craze started was because of the 2018 season. Keep that in mind. The 2018 season finished. Nebraska was a potential top 25 team going into 2019. Adrian Martinez was I think a 3rd or 4th on the Heisman list on the preseason rankings. So I said, screw it. I've got to get involved in this. I love Nebraska. Let's do something where I make content. I made a Nebraska Instagram account, and I was making posters about games and shit, whatever. I was doing all those graphics, but the reason I got so inspired and so excited to do it was because of the excitement and the hype from 2018 to 2019. Now, does this year match that excitement? There was a lot of hype back then. Scott Frost brought a lot of hope to this program. There's a lot of hope and excitement right now, but I don't know if it matches 2018 to 2019 for me. That was a big year. That was a big year. It was also the year that really got me back involved and engaged with Nebraska football because I kind of took some time off during the Mike Riley era. I remember when they got rid of Bo Pelini, I was so pissed off when they brought in Mike Riley. I mean, it hurt my freaking soul. I was so upset by that. So couple those two things together, and that really reinvigorated my energy. Now I've kind of dealt with this 5 years of nonsense. And so, you know, I'm so in the gutter trying to fight my way back to being positive. So don't get me wrong. I'm extremely excited. I'm extremely hopeful. I'm pumped the hell up for what's to come. And I'm a big believer in everything they got going on. But I'm just letting you know, deep down, it's tough. It's just tough. Barry says, this is a program changing thing we just witnessed today. I'm serious. You better remember everything about this day because your stories from 20 years from now will start with today. You know, it's so interesting. It's everything Barry's saying is true. If if Nebraska builds an offense around him, if Dylan Raiola pans out to be the 5-star we know he can be, if they go out and win championship level games, if they make playoffs, if they don't, it's another program defining or another program changing thing, because it'll make you question. It'll make thousands of fans question whether or not Nebraska can be saved. Because if a 5-star quarterback can't come in and fix it, then who can? This is a program changing day. There is a lot on the line. The pressure on Dylan Raiola is disgusting. It's offensive. I am glad not to be in his spot, and I love pressure. I love it. I love being in the situation. I love feeling like the weight of the world's on my shoulders, and I've got to find a way to make something happen. But this, it's a lot. That's why I said in my video I made today, you guys, if you haven't seen the video, you can go watch it on the page. I said, be patient, be kind, If something goes wrong, it might take time for this dude to develop into what we want him to be. But the expectations on his shoulders are unbelievable. He asked for it. That's the bottom line. Dylan knew that he was coming in to a crazy situation where fans would expect the world of him. And yeah, it seems like he's going to. Andrew, he says, what number is Dylan Raiola going to wear? So in high school, he wore number 15. On his last recruiting visit to Nebraska, he wore number 1. But on this recruiting visit, he wore number 15. The single digits are awarded before the season. Does he deny a single digit? I don't think he would. So I think he'll wear 15 until he's gifted or earns a single digit. That's my guess. So maybe number 1, because I'm trying to think. Billy Kemp was number 1 last year. He'll be gone. Number 1 will be open. So he'll probably wear number 1. That's my guess, but who knows? Let's see. Chance says, someone said Sims was a 5-star coming out of high school. Now he's afraid that Dylan is going to tank the same way Sims did. That's hilarious. Sims was a 4-star coming out of high school. And it's just such a different situation. It's so interesting, right? All of these quarterbacks have different skill sets, and so much of it has to do with what offense you go into. Look at NFL quarterbacks and look at a Sam Darnold who goes to the New York Jets and then never succeeds, never pans out. And how much different would his career trajectory have been if he went to the right team, if he had an offensive line, if he had weapons around him, if that offense catered to him? It's so interesting because now the transfer portal has allowed it's allowed players to go to schools that fit their skill set better. It's so good for college football. It's so good for the entertainment value. It's good for fans. It's good for the players. It's good for everyone. But the point here is some players might not end up in the right situation or the right fit for themselves, and others may. And hopefully Dylan ends up in the right offense. And hopefully, I wouldn't even say hopefully, I believe this to be true. I think Matt Rule's going to identify what his strengths are. And I think he's going to say, if I've got this kid for 4 years, I'm going to build an offense around his skill set. I'm going to make sure that I do everything I can to make him shine. Because if you make him successful, the team is going to be successful. That offense is going to hum. The defense is already good. Nebraska will compete for championships. That's the bottom line here. And I think it's really exciting to know that Matt Rule isn't stupid. He won't neglect anything. He isn't like Kirk Ferentz, who doesn't want to change, who doesn't want to run something different. Man, if you're an Iowa fan, I'm sorry for you having to deal with Kirk Ferentz. Because yes, I know it's fun to win 8, 9, 10, 11 games every year. But I was a Nebraska fan in the mid 2015, 10, whatever, that range when Bo Pelini was getting blown out in every major game. It was not fun to win 9 games a year and then to get blown out in 4 of them. That was lame. It was annoying. Why are we saying, oh, well, 9, 10 games is enough? We're happy. Nebraska fans win 9 games a year. Kirk Ferentz went on in an interview today. He said, well, I don't know what you're complaining about. I don't know what the problem is. We win 10 games every year. Check the win and loss. We win. And why are we going to change the offense? We're going to do what we're going to do. We're going to run this offense. So you can fire our offensive coordinator. You can say we need to put more points on the board, but I'm not doing that. We're here to win games. That's the bottom line. Well, Kirk, here's the problem. You don't win enough games. You don't change things up to try and win. I know I got on a tangent. The point I'm trying to make is Matt Rule isn't stubborn like Kirk Ferentz. Matt Rule is willing to change. He's willing to modify what he does. He's willing to work and put in he's willing to do what works, and he's willing to put in a scheme that will maximize his skill set, maximize his player's skill set specifically. So I have a lot of faith that Matt Rule's going to figure out ways to use this guy the right way. I think that's kind of the point I'm trying to make here. And Kirk Ferentz, I have zero faith in. Iowa is on this trajectory when the new Big Ten comes in, and Nebraska's on this. So that's it. It's fantastic. Let's see. Barry says the same thing. And I see people saying 15 is a retired number. People wear 15. I think Taman Lynam wore number 15 this year. And I see people saying, play the commitment video. I don't have my audio set up on Twitter, so I can't play the commitment video. But otherwise I would. But it'll just be a commitment video with no audio. I'm sorry. But if you go to Instagram or if you go to Twitter, you can see Dylan's commitment video. It's really good. It was produced by Jordan at Nebraska. Jordan is awesome. I haven't gotten to talk to him very often this season. You know, he's been really freaking busy. And I don't know if he's getting paid or not, but that kid deserves to be getting paid. I hope he's on the payroll, so we'll see. But Jordan is a really talented creative, and I've just seen over the past couple of years Nebraska's video content that comes out just keeps getting better and better. I mean, the experience visually is so damn good. If you go on social media, you've seen it. You guys all know it's this one guy who's leading that whole charge. He's very cool. He's really talented. So if you haven't seen that commitment video, go watch it. Really entertaining. But guys, I've been live for a while now. I think like 45 minutes. And I've answered every question I could. It's been an exciting week, but we still got signing day ahead. What, 2 days from now? So make sure you watch the video I posted today. I thoroughly enjoyed making it because I'm so excited that there are so many stories to talk about and so many things to dive in on in this off season that I didn't know were going to be things we could talk about, you know? I'll answer one more question before we get out of here. Jacob says, thoughts on Mickey Joseph getting a head coaching job? It's so interesting because there was a huge blow up last year after the Iowa game with he and his wife, and nothing really panned out from that. We never kind of got solace on what that was. What was the resolution? What ended up happening? I guess she didn't press charges. Who knows? Was it cry wolf? Did something happen? Was it a little bit extreme and there were just some claims? I don't know. Like, who knows? I'm not one to judge. I don't care. Everyone else's business. You know, if she didn't press charges, that's her own prerogative. So if he got a job at a HBCU and his whole goal was to be a head coach, then props to Mickey Joseph. He fought through adversity last year after he didn't get the Nebraska job, after he went through the drama with his family, and now he has that head coaching job. So perseverance is real, and it shows that as long as you continue to fight forward, nothing can hold you back. I mean, there are things that could hold you back. I guess you could murder someone and then you're kind of screwed. You'll probably go to jail for a while. But as long as you don't murder someone or cut off your own leg or do something extreme, then you can fight back from anything. And I think that's really cool that he was able to earn that job. So hopefully it works out for Mickey. I'm going to be sure to check in on his record over the next couple of years here. And yeah, that's really cool that he was a guy who came to Nebraska and ended up leveling up his life. It's exciting. Anyway, that's my thought on Mickey Joseph. That's my thought on Dylan Raiola. That's my quick thought. There's going to be a lot more this offseason, so I'll have plenty to talk about as we get into, January, February, spring ball, and we get a little bit more information. Right now, it's so fresh, so new. We just don't know anything yet, right? It's early. So exciting times. Make sure you watch my other video. I put a lot of effort into it. It's like 10 minutes long. No problem. You can click it easy. But thank you for being here, and I will see you in the next one. Go Big Red.